Bring county government meeting to order. First up is board of elections.
Just hold on 1 second, Cal.
Yep. It's not anything exciting. Close. Yeah.
Shoebox.
Okay, so this is to approve 3 grant extensions for 1 year. It's the shoebox grant, temporary pole site improvements, and an education and training. All 3 of these were before they're old, and they just keep getting extended. I didn't even know that we had money left in these, so it's kind of fun.
We have money?
Like that. Yeah.
I approve it.
Second, all in favor? Okay,
All right, thank you.
that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I've got.
Thanks.
Okay, next up.
It's easy when it doesn't cost us that.
I know. We're all happy with that.
Bringing money in, yeah, I'll move it.
Gotta let her sit down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My mind's not here yet anyway, so.
There you go.
There you go.
So I have one resolution to appoint 2 members to the Environmental Management Council. Representative for Hillsdale, Mary King, representative for Clover, John Bradley.
Matt, I'm good.
I move it. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Anything else?
See you later.
This is not going well. Way too
We've got
fast.
Bill sitting here. so-
Oh, you're right.
Suzette, we have.
Oh, Suzette came back. Darn it. Let's adjourn.
Okay. I'm proud of you. And people come on.
Yours must be more complicated, because yours always take a little longer. A lot more papers.
I like to
We did
talk.
2 departments all the time. It took her to get up to the table.
I couldn't, I had this. Okay,
Okay.
so this is just, I believe you all got emails from me shortly after the Board of Supervisors adopted the local law for the volunteer firefighters exemption that said, oops, we've got an issue with a little section of the wording where we had to take school district out of section 4, and I have it here. So this is just to revise that original
I'll move it.
local law. Okay.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I know my email to Kelly was up there, so you probably read that. Good,
We could do like
okay.
another hearing and all that.
Yes, unfortunately, Rob had said that. And the only other thing, I was just gonna report on the status of the reassessment project. So Ancrum did a reassessment this year, and they ended up with 100% equalization rate. They did have a good number of property owners that did file grievances, higher than some of the other municipalities that had done reassessments. But the Board of Assessment Review got through all those, and we'll see how many scars get filed. But for next year, we have Canaan and New Lebanon doing reassessments, and we have Claremont and Stockport who were assisting with reassessments for next year. And Stockport, the data collection had already been done, so our people out in the field had already completed that. I did let the assessor know if he had any new construction, but he thought, when I had asked him a while back, that he was on top of that. And Claremont, we probably only have 2 weeks or so left of data collection there, and then we'll be done with that, so.
We're still holding our breath because home prices are not going down.
Well, just talking to your assessor today.
Yeah.
The supply is still low, so the demand is high and the prices are still up there.
Just lower the tax rate.
We'll probably
We know how to do that.
yeah, we'll probably have double-digit trend increases again next year.
Suzette, I got a quick question. Have you heard any more about this volunteer firefighters, the ones that don't live in the town? We had a discussion where the firefighters cannot get the insurance break or get the break.
So as of now, they have to the fire district that they serve
They have to reside.
has to serve the town that they reside in.
We have firefighters that live out of that.
Right.
That's why I'm asking, you,
Correct.
have you heard anything from the state?
I
or
haven't
anything
heard
changing?
anything
Okay.
about that changing.
Cause I was asked by some firefighters, we just passed it this past.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't seen any change in that
Yeah,
yet.
I saw that, but I didn't see the email about the eliminating school districts. For some reason, I missed that email.
Yeah, that's what's.
It made it actually, Claverick and Stuyvesant and, Ghent and somewhere else. Assessor Lynn Hoteling was the one that, when she was reading it, she's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't think that's in there. And the wording had been in the previous legislation. And I took it, copied it from a couple other counties that had adopted it that way.
We're gonna have to change our law as well, because we've already passed it.
Okay, had you passed it before the county did?
No, we
Okay.
passed it after, but I just didn't see
But you
that.
didn't take
Oh,
out
you
that
didn't
school
see
district.
that.
I didn't
Okay.
see it, no.
So
Yeah.
we took it out before we adopted it at the town level.
Yeah.
After.
So just, and then if you happen to have conversations with your fire chiefs, let them know that they need to adopt a resolution and hold a public hearing. So I've heard that a couple of them have voted on it and have passed it that way, but they've got to have a public hearing. And then, if they could get the information to,
Would that be the fire chiefs or the board of commissioners?
well, I don't know. I
Depends
reached
on the
out
structure. If you
to,
got the commissioners, you would have to have the commissioners.
I sent George Keeler an update on the whole thing yesterday and asked if he could also reach out, to see that they know to do that.
Yeah, half
because-
of our fire commissioners said they did, the other half said they didn't, so I don't know.
And
what they did.
I haven't got copies of any,
No,
from
Lynn
any of
didn't
our
either,
fire
so,
companies,
yeah.
so I need to have a copy as well for our records, so we can make sure that it gets applied to the,
To the fire tax part.
Is there a sample resolution for the fire commissioners? Does anybody have one that they could share?
I don't have one, but I could certainly ask if there's any out there from another county.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I haven't heard anything from our part.
and I do have, I just yesterday sent
Some of them
information.
don't want to give the exemption.
Yeah. Yeah, I just sent yesterday information to the
yeah.
school districts, more information about the volunteer firefighters, and I had a couple schools ask for me to give, some estimated changes in their taxable values and everything, so Ichabod, I got them their information, and Taconic Hills was another one. Chatham had asked me, so they'll
Good
all
sign.
have that by the end of
Yeah.
the week. And East Greenbush, Skodak, they're little in our county, but they did adopt it, those schools already.
Back to the reevaluations, Cat is barely a year
Yeah,
under and we're at 95% already.
yeah, and that's pretty darn
That's pretty
good
good.
because
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
We're
right.
80 something.
the year after Claverick,
Yeah, don't go there.
did theirs, they dropped by, I don't know, 13% or
First
something
time,
the
yeah,
first year, and now they're down like almost 30%.
Wow,
It's
so what's driving?
the market.
Crazy, right?
The market.
Now she wants me to reval again. Actually, we just
I
did
didn't
it.
say
Yeah, she handed it to me, but we should do a reval,
Well, the state encourages municipalities to do it every 4 years. What Canaan and New Lebanon did this year was I'm not really gonna call it trending, because that would be, doing a flat rate across everything.
That's what we call it.
But she did a little bit more than that, but, to maintain the level that they were at last year. And they were successful in doing that. So they're still at 88 and 90, but that's because they added, I don't know, 13, 17 or 17 and 20% to stay at that level.
We didn't want 2024 to be such a shock.
Yes, when you do the recess.
It's more transparent this way.
And that's one thing that I do hear from property owners when they, start off with staff and then they they come to me, and their biggest thing that they say is, well, I don't understand why the town, waited 10 or 15 years to do this. I'd almost rather have it every year. But then when you do it
I
every
was gonna
year.
say, you get
hear
beat
the
up every
thing.
time you do
So
a reval.
Every
But
year.
the state does recommend a municipality to do it every 4 to 5 years.
Oh, I thought it was 3, okay.
Yeah, every 4.
Because we try and redo our inventory every 3 years.
Yeah, and who did so Chatham and Ghent is getting state aid. They got approved for the state aid, and that's a higher number than what it has been.
Tell
Like
everybody
three-
that.
Money comes to money, huh?
I want to say like 350 or so per parcel, and it had been down to like 250 or 270.
That's all I got.
I heard
Yeah.
charge for a little game.
But for Ghent also, I would just like to
Yeah,
say
I think
to,
you would love
to the supervisors, to thank you again for doing the summer youth program. And we have a college student working in our office this summer, Allison Engel. And she's doing a remarkable job. She's helping the mapping department with a huge task that they have. Kind of boring, printing a lot of, but she's there every day. She's doing what she's asked to do, and they're very happy with her.
Great. That's a good thing.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for,
Thank you
Give her
for
more money.
Where's Allison Angle from?
well, they did this year, right?
They did this year.
Give her more.
So the only other,
Allison is from Ghent. Yeah, she's from Ghent.
so the only other thing I was
That's
going to
fine.
about the trending or the interim adjustments
Oh,
is that that's an added opportunity to explain the system to people, because people just don't understand. So it's an education.
Right.
So our assessment is that's an investment.
And the other, yes, and, the other thing is when you do a reassessment or whatever, there is that early notice that goes out to property owners by March 1st. So it gives them, even though when they talk to us on the phone, they say, well, I can't possibly have it done by, 2 weeks when my appointment's gonna be scheduled. And I just try to say, get what you can. But then if you're not successful with the assessor, then you've already started the process to prepare for a grievance. So you can go on to that if you need to. So it really, it's giving them lots of time and, the thought of everything, so.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Yeah,
Thank you.
welcome. I'll see you next month, budget time. I'm excited for that 250th celebration.
Bill, you're up.
Scary to think what you're figuring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had previously mentioned to the clerk and to Supervisor Weigel, Supervisor Scalera, that I would ask that we go into executive session, maybe to talk to you about a contract time. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so does anybody on the board have anything else you'd like to
He's
discuss?
down chat, he can pitch in.
Sorry, he's gonna send a check. We guarantee.
Oh,
Motion.
Chatham, then for 1 second.
All right, Rick. At
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Makes sense from the other infrastructure perspective. But, across, the closest one, actually both the one in Lee and Lennox is probably maybe the closest to here, right over the border in Mass. And then there's one down in Dutchess County, in Unionville, which would be somewhat similar to this project. And then Saugerties, Ulster County, it's one of the first projects we did, in the state. At the same time we did the Greenport project. It was built in 2019. And that's on the landfill there. And then at the bottom is the largest landfill project that we did, which is down in New Jersey. And that was on the Vortex McGuire Lake Curse, which is a very, very big military landfill. So there's great opportunities here. This is an aerial view of the Greenport solar project. This is the part that no one really sees because it's kind of in the back. This is as opposed to the panels that are kind of closer to the road. But, you know, it's what we love about this project is, you know, just that, you know, it's, you know, and what we try to do with every one of our projects is being able to give the least impact, right, from what we design and thinking about the sites. This was an industrial use of land, and everything that we do going forward, whether you're trying to use the best land that we can, and that fits in the community, or in this case, in which you can only see it from really an aerial view. When we, this project on a landfill would be similar to what this is, which is a community solar project. The way that works is that power goes into the grid. It goes through the local distribution network, feeding the local, providing the local source of power. And then people can virtually subscribe to the project where they get discounted power on their electricity bill. And since this project, actually, there's been some great strides in terms of making that more efficient and putting all the bill credits on one bill, and everything goes to the utility now. So it's much more kind of streamlined and straightforward, and directly. So there doesn't kind of have to be this two bill situation, and it's a little easier for consumers to just say, hey, National Grid, you know, I wanted to sign up for this project, or in this case, NYSEG, but like, you know, we want to sign up for this project, and we want to, you know, your discount will just automatically go through the one bill. So that's been some nice changes there in the program as we've made it through kind of when we started that project in 2018 to where we are today, 5 years later. Best practices, you know, this is, you know, since really the work on the Greenport Solar project, we've done a lot of work with Scenic Hudson to think about best practices around development. They've done great tools to think about, you know, they have a mapping tool, they have tools about thinking about where's the best way, you know, best soils, you know, to be aware of, best seeding to do, other ways to really think about how we can make these sites even better from both a siting and an operational perspective. We have an active dialogue with them. We talk to them fairly frequently to think about how we can revise and make our best practices even better. They obviously are very supportive of landfill solar, and think it's a really good reuse of the land, and a no-brainer place to start if you have the infrastructure there. So we looked at a bunch of the landfills in Columbia County, and most of them are problematic from, you know, they fall in kind of two buckets of being problematic. One is, you know, the infrastructure, the topography of the site, and so there's just not enough buildable land or not enough dry land on which to build. The other piece of it is the interconnection. And, you know, when we first looked at this project, you know, it was challenging from the interconnection because we essentially have to get, you know, this is on Tallarico Road, and we want to get over to the other road over there to where it has very good hosting capacity. You know, the other challenge, which I will just, you know, highlight as part of this project, is the zoning. Ghent has very strict, you know, zoning and where projects are allowed, mostly in the commercial and the hamlet. We have a project that's operational in Ghent, and know that this is not compliant, so we'd have to go to the zoning board and have that conversation. So it's not this project is not without its, you know, challenges in its own way. But again, it's a landfill, so hopefully there could be a good dialogue about reusing that and kind of maybe revisiting that from a spot zoning, going where there's some challenges with spot zoning in Ghent as well. But that is, you know, if we can get essentially, and we can go to the next page, what this does have is some, on the preliminary layout we put together, some nice buildable area, about 10 acres. So we could probably fit 2 to 3 megawatts on this site. It's really nicely set back and hidden. And then what we would have to do is work with the neighboring landowners. And there's one kind of landowner that owns off a lot of this land to do an underground line, which we can, this is a preliminary placement of it. It could be moved around in many, many different ways. We could kind of consider different configurations. You wouldn't see any of this, all of it would be underground. And then you would go and interconnect on George Road, which is the point of interconnection there, which has really good hosting capacity. And so that is our general proposal of what we would look at to this site. Again, I think the biggest questions that, you know, is making sure the easement is feasible. Before we haven't approached the neighboring landfill before. First, we want to make sure that the county was interested in pursuing this type of project, or even kind of think about next steps of this project before we kind of put the cart with the horse. But we do think of all the county landfills that are there. This one has buildable acreage and a path to interconnect that is interesting when we can get there. The next page kind of runs through our standard commercial terms for landfill solar projects. Obviously, all of this is under discussion. The big pieces of this is that for, we pay a long-term lease, it's a 25-year lease. That the reason for that term is it corresponds with the initial 25-year program with the state of New York. We get to participate with utilities and put power in the grid under something called the Value Distributed Energy Resources Program. That's how community solar works. So we have that kind of 25-year base term. And then, basically for the next 1 to 2 years, we pay $5,000 a year to go run the process with the utility, get it right to connect to the grid. We go, get the permits with the town of Ghent, and we design and engineer the project. And so we'd also in this case have to go through the DEC to get a permit as well and do a kind of basically a use modification permit, which we've done as well in New York State. So that is, that's what would happen in part of the development. If there ever was a fatal flaw, we can stop, as it often happens in these projects, but we would keep going. If the town says no way, no how, right? We don't want this on the site. We obviously stop. So that happens kind of during development and through construction. And then once it's in operation, whatever the permitted nameplate capacity is, so it's a fixed amount, that megawatt phrase, that megawatt number, we will know before we construct the project what that annual lease rate is. And so we will pay that annual lease rate. I didn't mention here, but I'm sure that Mike and I will discuss a pilot for this project as well, which would be other revenue for the county. So as we go through, this is our general kind of proposal that we do for most projects. And as next steps as we are here, before I would approach a neighboring landowner, before I can put an application into the utility, would be something that we'd have to get buy-in from the county that you'd want to do that, either enter into some sort of land agreement. Usually a lease agreement is where we would go. We can also do some sort of letter of intent if there's an interest in kind of pushing the conversation forward to get some initial feedback from the utility, things like that. See where we go with neighboring landowners before we can commit to the project wholesale. But usually what we do is we would enter into a lease agreement and then be able to really start development at that point. And at that point, there's no cost to the county to do this, right? Everything that happens during development comes from us. So that's, paying for the interconnection application. That's all the design and engineering work. That's the post-closure modification to the DEC. We would cover all of those costs, and all we would ask for as a commitment is when we're ready to go, the lease is there and we're ready to move forward on the project. So, interested to hear questions, feedback, generally what you guys think about this landfill, other questions as it goes.
Well, I've got a question. So
Yes.
the town of Clover also has a landfill. Is that one usable or is that not usable either?
So if I remember where that one is, that one's on, remind me what road that's on.
Catskill View Drive.
That's on Catskill View Road. That is on single phase and it is very, very, very far from previous. I think that's the first one we looked at.
Okay.
Obviously, we've done the
Okay.
project off of, right off of 9H and
Right.
Clover, and we would love to get a project back there, but that was
it's too far
challenging.
back. Okay. I know where it is.
Yeah.
I was just wondering. I figured that must be the problem because I knew it sits out of the way. It's hidden. Nobody knows.
No one's there, and that's one of the reasons we like it. Now, at the end of the day, right, you can engineer your ways to a certain extent. Like if you want to reconductor the whole line, you can. That just gets very, very expensive. And so it's a matter of, can a lease rate support it? Or are there other pieces that can kind of go into it? And there might be an opportunity to, the grid's also a changing space, right? And so sometimes there's upgrades to substations and we look at a project, at one point, and then 5 years later, we can't do it, or 5 years later, we can do it, right? There's changing dynamics there, but we did look at that one and it is far from utility interconnection, which is by the way, the number one reason we can or cannot do projects. And often we find it's easier to engineer your way out of land than it is to engineer your way out of interconnections, because utility tells me what I can and cannot do at certain costs, as opposed to, dealing with, mitigating other land options, which is unfortunate.
That's National Grid territory, is that NICEAG territory?
Nice segment, Clark.
Interesting to hear from Jen Home Rule.
Yeah,
These are used variances.
Well, back when they came and asked about the Commerce Park, I suggested, why don't we start off with a small project on the landfill? I was very supportive of it. Thought it was the best place. Back then, they let me believe that the grid was not strong enough over on George Road, which has gotten improved since that conversation. So, I gotta be honest, I'd be all for it, but we still got some stuff to work out again.
Yeah, and look, we've been in front of that board, right? And we know,
With the current
and,
project.
that's why I wanted to highlight it as an issue. I'm not ignoring it. It's definitely an issue for the project. And I know that there's been projects that have gotten spot rezoned in Ghent, and that's not been the best, and that's usually not our way of doing things, right? We don't necessarily want to do that. The project that we did in Ghent was properly zoned for solar.
And how would this violate against code?
So Ghent's code only allows in the commercial district and the Hamlet district, right? I'm not making that up. In terms of what commercial, there's 3 different commercial districts, and most of them are along 66 Union Turnpike. So there's kind of a region around there that you can put solar. It's actually, and I mean, every town is different, right? I mean,
That's kind of a new regulation, is it not, to you?
That was
No, that was,
kind of one liner when we saw.
I mean, that regulation was adopted just a few years ago.
2018,
Yeah,
2019,
something like that, yeah.
something like that.
Say a few years ago, happens quick.
It was,
But yeah,
it was an easy way to control
right, I remember that happening over there, just in words.
commercial business.
At the time, because our project is there, is partially, we own land that's partially in Ghent, partially in Claverick, and at the time, Claverick's solar law didn't allow projects on commercially zoned land, and so we couldn't actually build a project back there because it wasn't compliant with zoning. We just kept the solar in the Ghent that where it was compliant. So we're always thinking about zoning, and we know that this would be a challenge. I think what goes for this, right, is that it's a very different type of project because it's on a landfill, it's on a county project that brings value there, but also, it should be fairly not visible. The only thing I can say with George Road is, yeah, I think it has been improved. It's showing very well on a hosting capacity map, but in these projects, until we go through the process, we can't guarantee anything as it goes. And so it's always good to kind of start there, have them do the study, and then evaluate.
Put a few in your ZBA and support this. It'd be interesting, it'd be provocative and push forward, but $8,000 a megawatt, that's currently what they're negotiating for pilot payments, right?
So the pilots that we have in the county are 3,000 per megawatt.
Right, but currently,
I don't know what's currently in front of what's actively there for which
Okay.
type of projects. This is, we can put it in different buckets, right? In terms of what we can do and we could.
But the parcel is off the tax rolls right now, so if we do something, it generates something, It's not like it's productive farm, it's not, usually land is being taxed at a certain level and then you enter into a pilot, but this land is not being taxed at all right now. So we bring it on there, but.
I remember
Right.
scavenging in that landfill when I was a kid.
That explains a lot, yeah.
Brenda has a question?
I was just gonna ask the adjacent landowner where you need the easement. What use is on that land now, and would that use have to change with the buried cable?
No, the use would not have to change. You mean from a zoning perspective or from?
No, from what the actual use now?
It would have no impact on the use, in what it's able to do. And we'd have a lot of,
It looks like grazing, it looks like open or grazing land, I couldn't see.
there's a house on there as well. It's a pretty big, area of land. We also, if you put back maybe the preliminary layout, we can look at it. This is the shortest path. There's other paths through other land that we could
I'm
do.
just thinking about if the land use doesn't change, it makes it do it easier. If it's not restricted or limited.
It wouldn't be restricted and it wouldn't restrict any activity above it.
Right.
With everything, it's called dig for a dig, but it'll be an underlying cable. It will be, but it's not a fairly small one. There will be, interconnection.
Is it one landowner or two?
it is one landowner who owns a bunch of this land. I think it might be under a couple different names, but I would have looked at it.
It probably is.
So, I mean, as a county, I think we've all talked about the fact that we'd like to see solar on landfill as opposed to productive farmland. And we've got a number of landfills around the county, but we haven't ever been able to come to terms on any of them. Personally, I think, or as a representative of the committee, we've just always been respectful of the municipality, so in this particular case, I'm not opposed to the concept of it from the county standpoint, but I want to show it again, and I would be respectful of any of their decisions. I think what you might be able to provide for us might be just a draft, concept lease agreement that I could have the county attorney start taking a look at, that type of thing. But as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to turn it off to Ghent and let them.
And I'm happy to give a presentation to either Ghent CBA or to the town board, and that would be helpful.
I'll give your information again.
Great.
Landowner's probably gonna be, it sounds like you're getting a nod at the county level. Landowner, have you guys had any discussions? if
No,
this
I
is
didn't want to
possible?
reach out.
Yep,
It's
I
not
hear
the
you.
time to reach out yet, but I'm
I
happy
know,
to.
we just, our last committee, we discussed what order to go in, and it's always,
Yep,
it's always hard to tell. But,
I think where we would like to be, I think there is, obviously there is, and there was a couple of things I would say about reaching out to the neighbor. First is that if we got under, an agreement, I would love to put up an initial or even kind of a letter of intent for something into the utility and get some good feedback. So before we wasted anyone's
Right.
time, try to get us a little bit of a preliminary look or even make it through the study to say, what are we looking at? I think that, usually if a county is involved or something that the county wants to do, that usually helps in the dialogue with neighboring landowners. It is, as opposed to saying like, I may be, if I approach someone now and say, the county may be interested in this, I'm not sure, what is, hearing from me, right? As opposed to saying, oh no, I have an agreement with the county. We are pursuing this. We just got this feedback from the utility. And, this is what this would look like. And so we could better understand, what we'd obviously pay him for the easement as well.
Ray, do you have anything you'd like to throw in on that? I'm just, we're not asking the committee to commit to anything tonight. I'm
No.
just trying to get an opinion here, but, process,
Yeah, so just a couple questions as far as these other facilities, as far as Saugerties and as well as Unionville. Do you know the type of caps that they had on those landfills, whether they were clay caps or membrane?
Their memory.
Or membrane?
Is this a clay cap or is it a membrane cap?
We were going to be clay cap.
this is all gonna be subject to DEC's
Understood, yeah.
regulatory approval, so.
Yeah, no, understood it, but for us, it's
Yeah.
just knowing the type of cap, because that can make a difference, and then all, or recall what the side slopes on those were as well.
The site slope. So that's if you look at this map, I can show you. The yellow is basically over 50.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, as far as the other two landfills, as far as
Oh.
Saugerties as well as.
This, off the top of my head, I can show you what those designs look like, but neither of them had slopes that were, we were able to build pretty, flat, but I can show you, send you some.
Just from an erosion standpoint, because again, if it is.
That's what they didn't like about Hudson,
Because again, you have a steeper slope that's clay cap, just.
Right.
More susceptible.
Yeah, and that's something that, is going back to the DEC review, right? That is something that's
Understood,
all
yeah,
very rigorously done, but it's
ultimately, the
important to
county
think
is
about.
responsible for the landfill, so
Yes.
that's the reason for.
Absolutely, and that is a big part of it, right? Is that we can't take over the maintenance part of it. That's still the county's responsibility. in the
So
RC.
Ray, so if something goes wrong, they take care of it or we?
Well, that's one of the things that we don't have to negotiate.
Oh,
Again,
okay.
so if there is erosion that takes place, again, overall, it's not going to be a net increase as far as flows from a
Right.
stormwater standpoint, but again, you can get some certain instances where the water coming off the panels becomes concentrated and there's susceptibility to erosion there. So again, there can be mitigating measures and there are mitigating measures on how that can be dealt with. But again, it just would need to be dealt with within the document, within the contract or agreement, that if any of that were to take place, obviously it would be their responsibility. We would need to have oversight as far as the county.
Exactly.
So
And
those are items to be dealt
You
with.
just gotta make sure you have it all laid out. in
Exactly.
advance.
And a part of that is, again, depending upon the type of cap that there is, and that's why I was wondering, when those were installed as well, just to be able to, again, take site visits.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, happy to say, so the Unionville Will Hill was constructed in 2018. Unionville was constructed in 2020, and Dix has been around since 2018 as well, and Saugerties, 2019 was the build, and I'm happy to, the Saugerties story I love, because the guy who was the landfill manager of that site liked it so much, he had us build it behind the house. So he was really happy with what happened there, but, in that case, with all of these projects, I think, and it can, again, depends on the cap with something with geomembrane, right, that's already impermeable, or impervious is what I really want to say, so that a lot of these landfills already have pretty good stormwater infrastructure, because it's not as if the water can filtrate through the existing. So like in the Willow Hill Road, it had the biggest stormwater basin I've ever seen in any project, not because we had to create it, because the landfill already required that to be there. So a lot of these, you're already building on, and clay's a little bit different, but you're already building on a surface that typically has already had to think through stormwater into the engineering. The other thing I will point out is typically on landfill caps, right, you don't want to disrupt the integrity of anything underneath there, release anything that will go there. So we ballast everything, and everything is kind of, so you don't put posts in the ground like you see on most of these landfills, but rather you put basically big cement blocks, and then you can lay them out in a certain way.
Yeah, I believe that's one of the earlier landfills that was dealt with the county, so it's been very quiet.
Right. That's a good thing.
Usually a good thing. Usually the problem is
No, that's my point, is
Yeah.
that it's been very quiet,
Yep.
and so.
Before Brenda, Ray, you had a question before?
Yeah,
to go?
it looks like it's considerable length for the supply line for the interconnection. I mean, how long is it? Do you have an estimate? Is there gonna be multiple transformers on that property?
No.
One, no?
It's just an underground line. Again, this is, the interconnection is the hardest resource to find on these projects. When I would say 80% of the time when someone asks me why I put a project where I put it, it's usually because of the interconnection. And so in this case, right, it's definitely not the perfect interconnection, right? The perfect interconnection would be, we build this right on George Road, and then we don't have to, there are losses when you go the distance, but is it worth it because it's a landfill and it's a productive use, and so it has value otherwise, right? Like, I think if this wasn't a landfill, I probably would not do this site. But because it is a landfill, and so therefore has that benefit to the county, and is a good place where we want to be putting these types of projects as reuse of land, it's probably worth doing a longer interconnection.
Yes.
Let's say the 25 years go by and the array becomes obsolete. What are the plans for the removal of
Decommissioning. So again, has a pretty rigorous decommissioning requirements. We agreed to a decommissioning law in the past for the existing project. So I imagine that we could be very same thing in place. We had to put up a bond or any sort of security, basically, to make sure that we will, if we're not there to take it down, then the town has the resources.
Most of us have adopted that nicer standards for that type of thing today in the town.
Yeah, but not really, you put it in that
That's
landfill.
what we do with cell towers. We do the same thing, removal bonds for cell towers.
Right.
I was gonna ask you if these 2 megawatt installations were coming more provocative than the 5 megawatt would seem to be the standard, but really you're saying you're targeting kind of idle brownfield type land.
I would love to build a 5 megawatt project here. I think the lines could take it. It's just that I don't have enough buildable area. So this is really kind of where, because you can see it gets too slopey on the side, and that green area in the back is the wetlands. And if I recall correctly, on the other side of the road, it's a bunch of wetlands as well.
And how far are you from the wetlands?
In this case,
Yeah.
These are federal wetlands, so there's not a required setback that it needs to be.
How far are you gonna be?
this is a very preliminary design. I'd have to go field site them out. But typically we would be, I mean, in this case, I'm not gonna, from the green, I'm not gonna kind of try to draw the scale. This is not a scale drawing, but we build outside the wetlands. I don't know which, I mean,
Should be at least 100 feet, right?
only for DEC wetlands.
But it's still wetlands.
I mean, yes, there's still wetlands and there's different regulations of what makes sense. And it's obviously, we also would have to field conformities, right? These are mapped based on what the Army Corps is. So we bring out a wetland scientist.
And these aren't
It
normal
doesn't get-
wetlands that we're talking about.
It doesn't Getty have talking about
It's a
a violation of the code, don't you have a rule that you have to build within farther than 100 feet or whatever?
Well, it would be, there's a lot more to talk about, yeah.
We haven't been out on the site to evaluate where the wetlands
It's
are.
just a
So
concept right now.
right, so we'd have to, but you're right, wetlands are important resources that we need to make sure that we are addressing appropriately on all our parcels and making sure that the Army Corps and the DEC are aware of what we're, where they have jurisdiction. They are, they're involved and also that we're protecting the wetlands that we're doing.
Yes.
So my last question is, would this additional capacity potentially positively impact our planning for EV fast chargers in the county, locating EV fast chargers? Is there enough capacity to help us with siting fast chargers?
I think it would add in,
So-
I remember when we were doing the community solar thing and nobody had any credits to sell, and if I'm wrong, Wendy, correct me, but these folks were trying to get people to sign on to community solar programs, but there was no credits to sell, so.
She didn't have to answer the question today, but I would just be curious to see how this capacity might play out.
So every local power helps, right? Because when we're thinking about the resiliency of the grid, right? And if you think about where electrons have to flow through, right? If you have a generator at your house, that when the power line goes down the street and you have some backup generator at your house, that enables you to stay, keep your lights on. And when you think about these distributed energy resources, whether it's a 100-acre parcel or a, 10-acre parcel, when they're going into under 115 kilovolts, which is the local distribution, kind of, we'll call it sub-transmission and local distribution, you are creating a local source. So if the tree falls between, basically, Tallarico Road and the substation, the surrounding communities could very well still be supplied with power. And so that's where any of these distributed resources, and kind of when we go back to the original argument of why we're doing distributed energy, it's always about energy security and energy resiliency and within a community. And so this is, take it the next step, right, in terms of, okay, so generation here, and if you look at Columbia County, and Columbia County is in NYSO, doing things like the NYSO breakdown, which is where like the independent system operator, so how we get energy fits in New York State. This zone, we're in zone F here, and this has the highest, I know everyone talks about down in the city, but and those high prices too, but we have equally high prices on electricity up here because we are essentially in a congestion zone. And that power comes out from, like, you think about the Anderson Highway, it kind of comes from west to Albany and then down to the city. And there are no generators that are local to Columbia County. So everything is getting imported into this county in terms of big generators. So when you're creating these local power sources, you're already creating a more resilient grid and lowering energy prices for this community specifically.
That's good to know.
And again, that's these types of projects, that's 20 megawatt projects, it starts getting, when you kind of get over 100 megawatt projects, it goes to transmission lines, slightly different story, but in this case, there is such a power vacuum here that you actually can use a lot of that power. And the second
Wendy,
thing-
I don't mean to cut you off, but we do have a lot of other business, so I do need to do that.
EV charging is a different story.
Yeah, that's a whole nother door. But maybe if you give your information to Kelly,
Yes.
If any of the supervisors have got any questions, feel free to reach out and,
Yes,
you know, to Wendy with direct questions.
Yeah,
I don't know if the
about
board
solar
members-
Storage, because I don't think my building department's good about that.
It's very early on and where
Okay.
it is, it's very, and this is one where I'd want to bring it up because this one is something where we're thinking about it specifically as an opportunity for an EV charger. So there's, but it's very, we've just recently got that land under control and put an interconnection in, and we're trying to figure out what but I'd love to follow up on it because we right now we have more ideas than plans.
All right, sure.
Great. Well, I really
So
appreciate it.
you can talk to Gat
Follow
more
up.
about it and, see how
Do
they
you want to
feel
reach
about
out to
it.
me or should I send a note to you?
I'll reach out to you.
Okay, great. One thing I can propose also, I know you want to go out of the other agenda, is that there is if you guys are interested in pursuing, there's one form that can get signed by the county saying you're working with us, just so utilities don't get a lot of applications in, that we can put an application in and get a preliminary report on the site and start that process. So if there is interest, but I will follow up with the draft lease agreement and we
Okay.
can talk about it.
Send me that, Ray, and the county attorney can review that and then we'll consider
Perfect.
where we
All right.
go.
Thank you so
Okay.
much for your time.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Next we have highway. Tony is soaking on the beach someplace, I think, but he is well represented today, so, sorry to keep you through that, but it's always
That's okay.
interesting, you know?
So our work schedule through the month, we're mowing the airport, roadways and landfills. We're doing ditching and culvert maintenance, roadside sign maintenance, bridge repairs and maintenance, clearing brush for sight distance, brush and tree removal at the airport, hauling stone for County Route 28 chip sealing project, hot mix patching of county roads, culvert and drainage work on County Route 19 as part of the highway reconstruction project. We're still involved in our solid waste project. We've completed 3.92 miles of paving on County Route 7 in the towns of Gallatin and Ankrum. We've completed 2.61 miles of paving on County Route 5 in the town of Canaan.
That was a nice job up there, by the way.
Thank you.
Up there a few days ago.
Are they using it as a speedway yet?
Yes.
It always happens. We're currently doing shoulder backup. We've completed Route 7 in Ankrum and Gallatin, and the guys are up on County Route 5 right now. And we've been doing a lot of storm damage cleanup in the towns of Stuyvesant, Stockport, and Kinderhook areas.
And I thank you for that.
All right, personnel update. We hired 2 motor equipment operators. We had 1 senior equipment operator who's retired, and 1 motor equipment operator, 2 has passed away. New business, none. And the only resolution request I have is to award the bid for snow and sand, items 1 and 2.
Move it. Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Opposed?
Work it quick.
That was easy.
Yeah, anybody got any questions about it?
I'm sorry I lost a coworker.
Yeah. Yes, so are we. All right, thank you.
Okay. And solid waste is up next. Jolene is also, well, just basking on the beach, you know?
She's having. Okay, so first up, we're gonna talk about food scrap. We've just removed the first batch of compost, if you will, out of the machine. It's gonna take about 21 days to cure. We're having a little bit of a moisture issue, so we're going to have Manish is coming either at the end of this week or sometime next week to come and help us with that. Collection bins are at the stations now. Chatham, I think, has 3 bins. Kinderhook has a few. Copake is doing really well now, so we'll be picking those up twice a week during the summer months because it's a little hot and the volumes are. We're getting, between 600 and 700 pounds of food waste a week now just from the outpost station. So it's been really great. Household hazardous waste, just a reminder that it's on Sunday, October 29th, 8 to 12. Brandon Eddy Drive, Commerce Park. Construction at the Greenport transfer station. So our residents are still slowly adjusting to the traffic pattern at the Greenport station. If you haven't been there, you guys should really come up and take a look. It looks amazing. Facilities and highway have done a great job, and it looks really, really good. Speed bumps are in place some places, so you do need to pay attention to the signage. And we do have a message board up there right now, kind of help directing traffic. Just a reminder that Sherman Station is open now on Wednesdays
all day from 7:30 to 3:45, as well as Saturdays. And also that Kinderhook will be closing on Friday, starting September 8th. We do have signs up. Our guys have been telling the residents about that.
We already got complaints.
Oh, okay. Just one? Okay, okay. Well, we've had signs up for a while, so hopefully we're lucky with that then.
To
And
get the
then I
complaints after
have.
that. Nobody paying attention now, you know.
Yeah. Right. Well, and we did post a sign, I believe, on the gate as well, just as a reminder as well. So I don't know.
Nobody read it.
Okay, well, sorry.
Put his address, number on the bottom,
Yeah.
underneath it. We'll get it worked out.
All right, and then I have a couple of resolutions. I am asking permission to surplus one John Deere Z-Track mower. Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye. And now I have a transfer for an authorization to transfer 15,000 from account EL 88. So, thank you. And this is to purchase our garbage
Gotta have
bags.
those bags.
Yes.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And that's it. Any questions?
Next solid waste day really is Sunday.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it's, we did one Saturday, and they thought, on Sunday would be good as well.
Thank you, Wendy. Up next we have facilities. Brian. Brian's not on vacation. I like that. You know,
Next month.
Okay.
Be here for the meeting though. As soon as it's done, I'm out. All right, work going throughout the county, 325 are still, doing some office renovations on the third floor, making extra offices. 401, you know, had a couple little, you know, minor things happen here. Balance fell off the wall and had to move a couple offices. So 560, we're just, you know, trying to, deal with the front steps, cleaned them off. They actually came out really nice. As far as the project goes, we're pretty much complete. Just have a couple more sensors that have to get put in, but, so far, you know, everything's running good.
I did stop over today and look at the new AC for the treasurer's office or real property, and they did a real nice job.
Yeah. Working out pretty, you know, really well. So here, the Board of Elections, we just got done delivering, you know, so 6 days of delivering vote machines with 2 men. Nutrition, we had to, you know, working with Highway Prep in the parking lot. They're helping us out. You know, there's some big old potholes that were there, so. See, solid waste, we're just finishing up, you know, the railings and the toe kicks for all the stairs and, you know, for the offices and the compactor shack. Out at, just had a little promise not on here, but Mount Ida, the generator, you know, the voltage regulator is shot in it. So right now I currently have a portable, and we're working on getting it fixed. But they know what it is, so just getting it on the schedule. So it's something to look for, you know, probably next year we should look at replacing this generator. I'm shopping right now, trying to come up with some good numbers for the budget next year, but they believe it can be fixed, but it's 31 years old, so I think it's time to move on. Let's see here.
We're into projects too, Brian. If I could get a meeting with you and Ray out at the Philmont Nutrition site sometime in the future, and let's go over that and while we're developing budgets and see what we ought to do out there. I know we talked about if we're going to be there for a while, we need to spend some money on that building. Some of the electrical problems you and I looked at 2 years ago when we started thinking about the new one, but we should just think about that.
Yeah, there's
happy to meet with you out there and just go over some ideas.
We got to look at certain things out there. Like I got to try to figure something out with the roof.
Yeah.
The throwing rocks, bricks, whatever they get their hands on up there. So I'm gonna try to make it a routine every, once a week, go out there, hop up there and, just check for any, damage. Well, luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had no leaks. There's one in the one room, but it was dry, so I gotta look into it a little more, but that's gonna be an issue, I think.
Well, let's just talk about it here
Yeah.
one of these days. So you get
Yeah.
a chance, both of you get together, we'll look at it.
Hey, Brian, I got a question. Airport, will we ever finish the fence completely around the airport?
Yes,
8 foot all the way around?
correct, yes, yep, so.
Wonder.
Yeah, he's got a resolution.
Then I have a resolution, just seeking to renew and accept a new maintenance agreement with Accessibility Solutions to service our elevated wheelchair lift.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That was easy.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Brian? If not, we'll move on to engineering.
Expensive guy.
I do have.
He brings gifts though. He brings gifts, right? 4.36.
Today I bring a gift. Actually, I bring 2 gifts. So great news on the funding front for bridges as far as the county is concerned. So the county was awarded 2 projects under the Bridge New York program. One was for the Rossman Bridge at 4.3 million, and one was under their culvert. It's still New York, Bridge New York, but it's a culvert program. And the county received $1 million for that particular project. So right now, looking at schedule, because keep in mind, we are also looking at the replacement of the Stuyvesant Falls Bridge. Again, so the timing between Rossman and Stuyvesant Falls will become very critical as far as when those 2 bridges are done, because obviously we can't have both of those bridges out at the same time. And right now, Stuyvesant has a reduced weight limit on it as well. So we may.
Fire company needs one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, emergency services do. So I need to speak a little bit further with DOT regarding the timing, but we may need to make an investment into Stuyvesant to try to bring that up, because I would anticipate that the Rossman Bridge can actually be done in a shorter time frame compared to Stuyvesant Falls. Based on what I see taking place with Office of Parks and Recreation regarding the historic nature of Stuyvesant, I can see that being a drawn out process, as we found out with Topeka and as we've been dealing with in Livingston and Claremont. So I'll keep the committee up to date once I'm able to put that together.
Thank you.
Stall Bridge, setting up or have set up informational meetings. My apologies. I have the incorrect date for the town of Claremont. That's actually Monday, August 7th. So my apologies for that. So I'll be attending the town of Claremont town board meeting first, and then going to the town of Livingston on Thursday, the 10th. And that'll be to provide the public a general overview of where we are in the process, what we've done as far as looking at the various options, as well as anticipated schedule for that particular project. I do have a resolution tonight requesting authorization for the chairman to enter into the memorandum of agreement between the county, Office of Park and Recreation, and also Army Corps of Engineers. That's
documented.
Yeah, luckily, as far as the loss, again, because Office of Parks and Rec, taking a look at it, have identified it as a true loss. Because it is eligible, although it's not a historic structure, it is eligible. And since we are removing it and replacing it, they have come to the understanding and agreement that yes, it is a loss. And they are requesting that we do documentation on the structure. So again, that means photos, taking a look at plans, providing a narrative, and those be stored with the county as well as the local townships as well. Similar to what was done with town of Clobbeck when we had the Church Road, if I remember correctly. A very similar process. So, Valley View Bridge contracts have all been signed, so we're just waiting the project schedule with the contractor and evaluating placing in a temporary bridge, utilizing the county temporary bridge, so that way the traffic could remain open during the entire construction period.
And what's the target date on that? Do you have?
Right now we're hoping for the fall as far as some.
Hoping for this fall.
Yeah, it's at least starting. I hope to have a more detailed schedule.
And possibly working through the winter, right?
As far as the demo, yeah, we would look to install the temporary bridge this fall, start the demo on the existing structure, and then start the new construction come spring.
Okay.
That's what we're hoping.
Gotta have a plan.
So yeah, so we're looking to utilize the county's temporary bridge on that, so that'll be a good item. But also, if you remember last month, we purchased or we gained authorization to purchase those signals, traffic signals. So we're actually looking to utilize those, and that'll actually save us approximately $65,000 from the contractor. So again, if you remember, the units were 70,000.
Right.
Contractor wants to charge us 65 for temporary units, so we'll use the ones that we have.
So which side of the bridge would the temporary bridge be?
If you're approaching, on the north side, we're looking to place it on the north side. Yes. Yeah, the right of way there is a little wider, so it looks like we actually may not need to go actually back to Parks for any additional land or anything of that nature. Fish and Game Road, that work continues. Unfortunately, the temporary road closure will need to be extended. As of Wednesday, I was hoping that we'd only have 1 week. My apologies, so I need to update that date as well. Looks like we're gonna be 2 weeks. The contractor was moving forward very well. There was a scheduling conflict with their crane operator, or crane company, excuse me. They had gotten backlogged, so they had to move the timing of the delivery of the culvert and the crane installation by a week. However, this past week on Sunday night, the entire excavation got flooded.
Still flooded.
And still is flooded, yeah.
was there
So
yesterday.
bring your bathing suit,
Yeah.
jump in. It's, yeah.
It's
I didn't do
unbelievable.
it. Yeah, it
Water.
is. And the contractor had it dry the entire time. He was ready. Things were looking great. And Sunday, it just, after 3 inches of rain, it unfortunately flooded. And it continues, So we're gonna reassess it by Friday, and then I'll provide formal notification to all of the, emergency services, and provide formal notification and change the message board signs and so forth about extending it.
Ray, does that come in segments?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Correct, yeah. If I remember correctly, I think each segment on this one was roughly 6 feet in length. Okay, so yeah, they're smaller segments. All right. But that whole bottom area was clay. Like I said, unfortunately, it was dry. Now that it's wet, until we get that pumped out and see what's left,
Yeah, see what's there. Where the stone-
then we'll have to assess how to move forward. Correct. Culverts, County Route 7 over the road jam down in the town of Gallatin. Had the informational meeting last night, which I think went very well as far as the general public and the town board. Obvious concerns of the two neighboring properties. So I've actually met with the one property owner to the north. We actually have to do a land acquisition. We're going to have further discussions with her. We may need to do some plantings, which she's requested, which we're glad to do. And then I actually hope to meet with the other landowner to the south. No land taking there, but just to go over that project a little further in depth with her towards the end of this week. But all in all, I think it actually went well. So goal is to bid that during the winter of 2023 into 2024, and then construction to start in the spring of next year, 2024. The other item, highway department's been dealing with flooding issues and cleanup items based on all the storms. There was some flooding that took place on County Route 11 down in the Martindale area. Very interesting situation there. There's a water course that goes underneath the county roadway, and running parallel with the county roadway is an elevated rail bed. And unfortunately, that elevated rail bed had a culvert underneath it as well. So as far as we can tell, the original structure, which was underneath the rail bed, then was extended by someone, whether it was the town at the time or the county when we took it over, but basically it's one large culvert. The section under the rail bed actually has collapsed, and that's impacting the drainage in that entire area. And since it is an elevated rail bed, that has actually trapped the water. And my understanding is that there was water in essence of 18 inches over our roadway for some period of time, and we actually had to close the roadway as well.
Who's responsible for the rail bed?
Office of Parks and Recreation.
However, so again, from a permitting standpoint and contact and property ownership, I reached out to Office of Parks and Recreation. I had previously reached out to them because it happened on one other occasion, not to this extent, but a couple of months back, this happened before. They were unresponsive. This last Monday, I called them back after all the flooding that was taking place, not only here, but actually down in Orange County. So they were in the midst of dealing with that. And they had indicated to us, provide us with an email of whatever you're proposing to do and we will approve it and get it done. So that's what we did. Again, at this point, is it at our cost as far as this? Right now, the majority of it's manpower and machine rental. However, I did get a number, put it in for a claim. Hopefully we can then possibly get some money from FEMA. So again, we are in the state system as far as potential funding. If FEMA comes through for this particular area, that's the biggest question. If there are enough projects and cleanup in this area.
Do they think there is gonna be rain in that? 'Cause my highway superintendent asked me too about that.
Probably not for Columbia County, unfortunately. Yeah, Dutchess County and South, even Dutchess County is scrambling to see whether they're going to be eligible. Really, Orange County was hit the hardest. And the biggest part is it also depends on the period that they're considering. Because again, there've been multiple storms.
Right.
You know,
Which storm are you talking about?
yeah, because actually our flooding occurred on Friday night into Saturday.
Right.
The major flooding that occurred down south in Orange County didn't happen until Sunday.
Yeah.
So it depends on the period. Other engineering activities. So as you are aware, so the county's looking to proceed with the potential purchase of 11 Warren. So again, there is a pair of resolutions to consider there. The county has done due diligence in the form of conducting an environmental phase 1 on the property, which did not turn up any environmental issues. There's also been a property survey on that as well. Again, no issues there. So at this point, Columbia County Economic Development has negotiated and secured the contract with the landowner, and the proposed resolution would be for the chairman of the Board of Supervisors to execute an assignment of that particular contract and work with the county to move forward with it. And again, the goal is to relocate existing county departments, looking to target departments currently that are in 610, as well as far as probation and public defenders. And as a matter of fact, Supervisor Lagoni and I had met with ILS about potential funding to relocate public defender's office. They've indicated that there may be as much as $770,000 that could be utilized for renovations, demolition, architectural fees as well, in addition to IT improvements, computers, hardware, and also for furniture. So that's some good news as well. So please pass that on to PJ, but again, I'm trying to bring.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we budgeted for 500, and they're gonna give us 770. So, okay.
Taking that credit.
Yeah, I don't want the credit. I don't want PJ to know that I'm trying, so. Terminal apron reconstruction contracts are signed. Contractors scheduling the work, so we hope that will actually take place between August and September. So we're working with Richmore Aviation on that. In addition to that, at the airport, the county had received 3 funding sources for grants through the FAA COVID program. So that's under the CARES Act, the Cursor, and ARPA. So just keep in mind that these are separate funds from the other ARPA funds that the county has already received. But we actually, county had spent, and we did receive reimbursement of $151,000 for them. So those projects have been closed out. So we received all of our funding there.
Yeah, that was amazing. They were offering 100% during COVID on some of the approved.
Yeah.
The county also was approached by a neighboring landowner to the Clobber landfill. Kelly, if you could go beyond my proposed resolutions to the first tax map, and my apologies for not changing the order.
This one?
Yes, thank you. So the county has in excess of 180 acres in this particular area. You see the town of Clobber landfill located to the north where it says 28.2. Thank you, Kelly. The county owns the land to the south. The neighbor to the south has an adjacent parcel And they are interested in obtaining and purchasing the lower portion of the county lands, approximately 107 acres. That line that bisects the county parcel, Kelly, do you see where the one, yeah, that's it right there. So that's the proposed line that they would like to acquire the lands to the south of that line. Again, roughly speaking, that is approximately 107 acres in its entirety over 2 parcels. Kelly, can you go to the next map as well?
Have they intimated what use they were intending for it?
They indicated that it was for recreational use, hunting. It does contain
It's
a lot
all
of
swamp. They're trying to
It's
clean up
all
their swamp.
landfill,
Yeah.
swamp.
Yeah.
Absolutely, most of it, 90% of the swampland.
So the area towards the top of the page that is open, that's the existing landfill. So that's Town of Ghent property there. The area surrounding that to the south is the county lands. You'll see, thank you, Kelly, right where your cursor is, there's actually a communication tower at that particular location. So obviously that would remain on the county lands. The heavy black line represents the area that the parcel owner hopes to acquire. The area in green that you see within that, thank you, Kelly, is actually New York State DEC wetlands. So that's the extent of the wetlands. Again, as Supervisor Weigelt has identified, a good portion of that is actual wetlands. And that's the wetland that's been identified based on the mapping that does not include the 100-year adjacent or 100-foot adjacent area. That would also impact that area. So again, the majority of that land is wetland. The good thing is that it's located entirely outside of the obvious footprint and area disturbance. As far as the landfill, the county is not using that particular land. The only thing that I request this evening of the committee is that if the committee would even consider selling that land, there's a lot of due diligence that still has to take place as far as identifying the value of the land. There'll have to be surveys that are done as far as property surveys and so forth. But before either the property owner making that type of an investment or the county putting in the time through the county attorney's office and our office, just floating it past the committee, whether it's in, whether the committee would be interested in entertaining the potential sale. So this evening, not requesting a resolution, but if you would a straw poll vote of whether anyone's interested in,
Yeah, well, I gotta say to the committee, I was down there with the landowner himself, and I can tell you his name's Alex Kaiser. I think a lot of you know Kaiser Well Growing and stuff like that. He basically just wants it for hunting purposes and wetland. And like I said to Ray, I said swampland that we don't get any tax money on. Why Clover gave all that land went out when you guys took over the landfill. I don't remember that far back, but I mean, I didn't realize there was that much land in there, but we were up in there, like what he's trying to take out is just a flat lower area where most of the swamp is and everything, nothing there. No access to it from other neighboring roads or anything like that. And it wouldn't intersect anything. We can get it on the tax roll, in my opinion, we're back in the tax roll, So we usually don't do that. We take from the tax roll instead of putting it back.
Correct. Is this land in a floodplain?
It's not in a floodplain, but it obviously is a wetland, so it does get wet and it is prone to.
He has to deal with DEC and everything, what he wants. Basically, he might hunt it for ducks or something.
I don't know how, what our procurement policy is on this directly, but I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't be able to, how would you be able to directly sell to somebody without putting out the bid?
No, we have to get an appraisal and then just like we've done anything else.
Offer to every adjoining property owner, because it should be, it's gotta be out, obviously for everybody.
I don't know if you gotta bid it, but you do have to they have to be able to pay an appraised value. I mean, if they made an offer, we'd have to know that that's the appraised value of it. So, Rob?
Yeah, we had reached out to the county attorney's office who indicated that there's a lot of legwork that needs to be done, including an appraisal. So that way it can be fair market value as far as the price, as well as survey would need to be done. So that way it would be updated as far as what the actual ownership is. And he did mention that there'll be multiple steps. I will ask him the actual process. We didn't get into the weeds as far as the process and the details as far as that's concerned. But, if we didn't want to go to those steps, if the committee just said outright, we're not interested.
Then we'd be getting escrow, so that's coming out of this guy's.
Yeah, so the cost.
We shouldn't be paid for anything.
Correct. So
Right, no,
that's correct.
he'd have to do the surveying and all that stuff.
That's correct.
We'll do it all.
Yeah, we're not
So
looking
did
to.
he say what he wants?
No, he did not. He did not indicate anything as far as a purchase price. Again, we're the owner, so as the owner, we.
I told him it would have to be a price. I don't know what swampland is.
It's landlocked swamp.
It's gotta be a price.
But we have no foreseeable future use for it.
No, we don't have a use for it right now.
It's completely landlocked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and
I
again,
think there's only two other parcels on this side, on the left side. He owns the land down to the lower end on this side, so, you know what I'm saying, there's two
Right, we
other
gotta make
people,
sure
if
it's fair.
anything, decide one.
Not that we're picking him to
Right.
sell it to, you gotta make sure. it's
Right.
equitable.
Right.
Ray's got a
And
good
tower,
point.
tower access, is that where it goes, still stays on the property you want to retain? Is that-
yes, it does. That's correct. That extends to the north, so that's still within the county property. And again, at this point, it's only to entertain pursuing this.
Right.
It's not committing
It
the
might not
county.
fall through, but we don't. know
Exactly.
that yet.
It's not committing the county as far as actual selling it without
Right.
having all of the due diligence done on the property and so forth.
Yes, Brenda.
Can it be subdivided? Does it have a road access?
So it would be subdivided, but then attached to a neighboring parcel. So that comes into the appraised value and who could make an offer on it.
I don't know what the local subdivision, but in Canaan, you cannot subdivide a landmark parcel.
So you can't subdivide this unless you can adjoin it to somebody else's.
This is a lot line adjustment.
Right,
Right.
right. So I would anticipate that once he purchases this parcel is that he would actually do a lot line. So that way it's incorporating one
Okay.
parcel.
That's right, only the adjustment.
But it would be hard, we couldn't subdivide it and then auction it off to sell it to just anybody, because nobody can get to
It
it.
has to be a neighboring.
But like Ray said, the neighboring, other neighbors may. I
Not,
don't
not
know.
neighbor, but.
The butter, correct.
So my opinion is, I'd go further and see how it works out.
But again, understanding that it's at their cost.
Right, that's everything he's got to pay for.
You don't need do you need a motion or do you? need-
A motion would be great. Yeah, I don't need a
I'll
formal
make a
resolution. A
motion.
motion would be.
I'll
great.
second it.
Motion is second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Can you sell the land?
I'd love to sell them the land.
Right.
Well, you can put panels on it now.
Yeah, right, yeah.
There's not enough pizza.
Somebody's gonna do it.
So I have, 4 resolutions. First resolution would be for Seeger on 11 Orange Street. Again, it's existing building. It's currently used as an office space as well as, educational. And the only thing the county is going to be doing is purchasing and renovating the interior for, again, office space. So very minimal impact.
Second. You got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Second resolution is authorizing the chairman of the Board of Supervisors to execute an assignment and any other necessary documents to proceed forward with the assistance of the county attorney for the purchase of the property located at 11 Warren. Again, the full cost of the property purchase price will be $3,350,000.
Move it.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye. Next resolution is authorizing the chairman of the Columbia County Board of Supervisors to execute a memorandum of agreement between the county, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, and the New York State Office of Parks and Recreation.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Last resolution I have before you this evening is a resolution regarding authorization of us to declare surplus a stockpile of structural steel members that we can auction.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor?
Thank you. I have one additional request, if I may. I've been working with Rob Fitzsimmons and the USDA as far as the existing lease in the soil and water bill.
Good.
And so I just didn't have the opportunity. There's a discrepancy as far as which supplemental extension this is, as far as the lease number.
It's their job to confuse you, trust me.
Yes, they are, yeah. So, it's to extend it, to the end of this year. They are gonna go up on the open market to look for new space. They've identified that. That in part is because of the fact of how long the existing lease has been. They've also indicated, that they may be looking for additional square footage as well.
Does not make any sense.
Understood, yeah, but, so
They have
again,
their rules.
I'm just requesting that we have a special meeting before the next full board meeting, and by that time I'll have that
Okay.
lease item dealt with Rob.
I have it the night of the full board.
Correct.
Okay.
And if the board can pass that, that would be great. So yeah, so I would just request that we have that special meeting.
They good with everybody?
So move.
We have to ask Kelly though.
Ray already covered that.
Okay,
I went groveling.
right,
Yeah.
groveling.
And for those that may have heard rumblings as far as the USDA saying that the county wasn't responsive regarding the lease, I have an email from Rob Fitzsimmons, the county attorney, to the person that we were dealing with at the time. So we are, since I came on board in January of 2022, we're now dealing with our first person with the USDA as far as this lease is concerned. Rob sent an email back in April 27 of 2022 indicating the formal expression of interest regarding the lease. So their USDA was saying that we were not responsive.
I did hear the rumbling.
I just wanted to set the record straight that the county did reply. But again, we are now dealing with our first.
10 years ago, we went through this, or 12 years ago, I remember dealing with this lease, and it took years to get it done.
But they're saying they need more space.
And the people working there are like,
why?
That's what they're indicating. They are indicating that
Put
they
3 people in the whole place.
right. And one of the problems, to your point, as far as how confusing it is, so apparently there have been attempts, don't know whether there's actually executed agreements or not, as far as extending this lease out. I've seen 3 or 4 different drafts, but I haven't seen, and the county attorney doesn't have anything on record as far as a formal signed agreement on those. And it indicates that there was at least 2 other agreements trying to extend this out. And we're just trying to get our
Figure
ducks
that
in a
out.
row and get everything in order. So that's all I have.
what will happen is the people you're dealing with now are gonna change.
Correct, right.
Before you
That's
get the
why-
lease
that's why-
done,
That's why I don't want to wait till September. I'd rather
Right,
strike
yeah.
while the iron's hot.
If you got somebody you're talking to, move on it.
On Karen Lee.
Yes. So I actually stopped in to see Christina Crowley. She's the resident engineer. I actually stopped into her office. She's working with their traffic engineers
Okay.
and their traffic people regarding signalization. So she is having a very tough time with a lot of the signals here and the signal loops, more importantly, the signal loops on many of the intersections where the DOT has actually disturbed those loops, where in many instances, the lights actually aren't working the way they were designed as far as the timing of the signals. She doesn't want to create another problem here at the intersection. So she indicated that she's actually going to be getting together with them on the other loops as well as this loop. And then that area can be repaved.
Any idea and timeframe?
She's looking at the latest, probably September, but she is looking, which I need to have further discussion with her because I don't want to be responsible for the loop as far as the county, because then we have to put it back. And she's already indicated that it's problematic. I would like to see and have them remove it. We do our paving and then they install it. That's what I'm going to arrange with them. I think it's only about 100, less than 100 feet. Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably
At the end of County Route 8, town of Germantown, where it hits the state route 9G.
Yeah.
It's a very, very busy intersection, right down to the school,
Yeah.
busiest part of the town. The town or the county paved County Route 8 stopped about 50 feet from 9G because it was in the right of way of the state, and the state did 9G and never did that section. So that section of road is it's beyond terrible.
Yeah.
And nobody seems to want to take ownership and fix it. But that's what I've been talking to Ray about for the past few months, trying to coordinate with the state to try to at least fix that last 100 feet, 50 feet, whatever.
Yeah, one of the problems that she's run into also is that there's been a big turnover in DOT as well. So the people that she was dealing with regarding the traffic loops and also the traffic signal engineer is no longer.
Are they all still working from home too? Or-
Many of them are, these 2 days. They are eligible to work from home in these 2 days. And unfortunately, that also affects the signalization at the Bell's Pond intersection, where they were going to be putting turning lanes and
Really?
dedicating
Yeah.
turning lanes and so forth. That has slowed down because the traffic engineer that was responsible for that project has
Is that
left.
why our Green Street project is on hold too up here?
Is that
The city
Noel
Hudson?
or Noel? Because we had a guy that just disappeared all of a sudden that we were working with on.
Was he dealing with the traffic signals?
Yeah.
Yes. Then it was.
I got one more question.
Yeah.
The solar, back to that solar presentation. If we're considering going with that company, do we have to get other bids on solar now?
That's a question I've got for Rob. I talked to him about it. He said, find out some more details from these people and yeah.
There's many companies that do the same thing.
We started down this road many years ago and then we were gonna do an RFP. And we never got there. I think, who was it? New York Power Authority had kind of a template that I started to work with to do an RFP. And then I don't know, when this solar developer contacted me, I talked to Rob, and Rob said, find out more details about it. So I don't know, but that's what we got in this before. I mean, you know, if they offer us one price, would another developer offer you more? And, I don't know that this is feasible, and I don't know that Ghent would allow it. So, you know, I didn't want to go, yeah, that's another key to this. I mean, again, that's not us. That's kind of, the solar developer has to come with a project. You know.
Yeah, I mean, the concept is fine. I mean, I think it's great to put on there, but I mean, there's a lot of moving.
I know, yeah. No,
Landowner being one of the biggest.
Big one, yeah.
I get you, but I mean, if they do all that and then they come to us with an agreement, I don't know, do we have to bid it?
Well, maybe that's why she wants to get that first piece of paper. Maybe we don't put that first piece.
Right, yeah, I mean, we don't, and again, I'm not signing anything until we talk to our attorney. And again, I mean, Ghent's got a couple of hurdles there, so.
Yeah, but Ghent has to agree to, if Ghent doesn't agree, then.
Right, like I say, as a county, I've just always been respectful of the municipalities, so, you know, how they deal with it. Right.
Still a lot of traffic with the ballast on top of that.
Yeah. DEC does encourage it quite a bit, you know, I mean, I see it, but,
We can't put it on the Hudson landfill?
no.
But will the county get 25% of the pilot as well as the, you know, the payola?
Mike can answer that better. How does that, if they're paying us, I think that's,
I think you've got to figure out, all the moving part issues, but then, if you're getting that, you're not gonna get the 8,000.
right.
You know, you get some portion of the 8,000. But I texted someone, the CEO, how much would he pay for, I didn't tell him why or how, but, you know, maybe 9,200.
Yeah. And again, I mean, they're just throwing some prices out there just to entice us to talk, but I mean.
Well, that's why I said that number about the pilot, because aren't people asking that much for pilots now for?
Well, no, we've been talking at the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah, so
That, you know, these folks came in early, and, in some cases, the county didn't participate because, they get notice. And they're at 33,000. I've got people now at 3,500, and I have people at 4,500.
I think we did throw out the number one time of 8,000, but we never did that, no.
Green County did the 8,500 or 850. Or it's $8,500 because they want to slow it down.
8,500,
Yeah.
right.
And, we're looking at that. We're getting an assessment of, what other counties are doing. You know, they all tell you that, that will put us out of business. If you go from 3,000 or 3,500 to double it. But, you know, I'm thinking that, you know, it should really come in somewhere around 5,000. Because, people that got in early, when there was nobody to evaluate whether it was fair or not. This group did end up, in one case where we told them they had to go to 3,500, they're now, and they made an agreement with the town to pay an annual fee.
Can't beat us up on that one.
And then we had an issue in, where, someone took the amount and divided it prorated based on the, percentage of taxes. Instead of the plan that we had been using of 50% to the school district, 25 to the town, and 25% to the county. So the town was only gonna get 4% of the taxes. And I told him that that wouldn't work, and I had told him what the standard was, and he did it his way. So he's gonna pay 4,500 a kilowatt, because that way the town will get what they would have gotten if he had done it right, and the school district will still get one.
Anything else for Ray? You do have a public question? Yep.
Yeah. Could you tell me where I can get information about the county right of way for property on Fishing Game Road?
Sure. Ray is right here. He can explain that.
We actually put an orange mark in front of our property.
I saw that. And before there was a white painted one, now it's an orange. But it's kind of in a little bit different place, and it's not permanent. And I'd just like to be able to know for sure, definitively, you know, from some survey post or from the center line or from however it's measured. I'd like to know for sure. And that, the mark that you did, thank you, but it is just by the driveway and the land extends further.
Yeah, when we had met in the field and then the other day, it was my understanding you were concerned about plantings at your driveway. That's the reason we only marked the area on each side of the driveway.
Well, I
You
just,
didn't indicate that you wanted it along the entire frontage of the property.
yeah, well, that's fine, and thank you for doing that. I just would like to know what the guidelines are. Is it a resolution? Is it a law? How do I know really?
It's a
And if-
property survey, actually, because
Okay.
as I mentioned when we had met in the field and then the other day, the right of way is not it's not a user road. There's actually a
Right.
defined right of way in there, and that's based off of property surveys.
So
So it can vary, and it does vary through that entire area.
and that's fine. I'd just like to know what it is at my property. Is that
Yeah, I
a fair
can-
question?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why we marked the area that we thought was the area of concern. If you want to run the entire frontage, I can provide you with a copy of the maps that we have that show the limits of the highway line. I can email
And
it.
there are measurements or whatever that you can see actually.
There's a scale on the drawing, so you can actually scale on from that.
Yep. Because as it is now, both the white line that washed away and the orange line indicate that there's a drainage ditch further away from the center line, further away into my property.
Where that one pipe is, the under drain pipe?
It looks like a
The
drainage.
core,
ditch.
yeah. So that's just temporary, because that's where they terminated their excavation before they continued with a porous pavement that would continue a little further down past your property. And so the contractor just daylighted it temporarily until they go back to that area and complete the construction.
I understand that. It looks like property beyond the orange line has been dug. Yeah.
Correct, and he did. And he's got to go back and he has to restore that. I met with him the other day when we made that mark
Okay, so it was a mistake.
on his, correct?
Okay. And then the only other thing, I would request is if the county would reconsider, making that a 55-mile house.
That's a DOT issue.
Well, I have from the previous engineer in 2017, I have a letter, I have emails, and every single time he said it would remain at 45.
So I did go back, I misspoke when we were at our meeting, and I did go back to the design plan and confirm that entire segment will remain at 45.
The whole 1.9 new mile,
That stretch that is under the project construction now is going to remain at 45.
okay, so I feel like I have to ask exactly the right question. So what part would change? to 55?
No, I just mentioned, I misspoke.
Oh, so,
At the meeting the other day,
okay,
okay, I acknowledged the fact that I misspoke, that I thought a section of it was going to be at 55.
okay,
I went back to the design plans and confirmed, as I said I was going to,
uh-huh.
that entire construction segment is 45 miles an hour.
So what about from 217 to 9H?
That's 45.
All 45, and it's gonna stay there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And just to let you know too, Clovis, we're gonna be putting, he's gonna be putting signs up earlier, where we talked about the speed limit signs. And then I'll have the state troopers down there monitoring it. Once this is all said and done, we're gonna put, the electric signs up showing you how fast you're going.
Yeah, and you know,
We know they're gonna go fast. It happens. It doesn't matter what you do, but we're gonna try to enforce it pretty heavily when it gets all said and done.
I appreciate that, because you know, they speed now, and then with wider and straighter and smoother.
They're gonna go faster, but there's no doubt, but we're gonna enforce it. That's the job of the state police stuff. That's their job, not our job. That's their job to do. So we'll make sure they're enforced. Yeah. My nephew runs a barracks, so I got some info there. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep it at 45 is the best thing.
Right.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yep, it will.
I'm sure it's gonna be a nice road one of these days. Someday, after the flooding stops, you know, but-
Provided the rain stops.
right.
And the trees grow.
All right, anything else? Any other questions from the public? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.